It might seem hard to believe, but the North American League is already half over. While some Siege leagues the world over only just got started this week, here on the NAL, we're already on day 6. The points are getting scarce, the games are getting harder, and those teams who aren't good enough are about to find themselves in the last chance qualifier, whether they like it or not. So all the points that teams get from today and from the Super Week from next week are really about to start mattering a lot more than they ever have. Welcome to day 6 of North American League. I'm Caliber Jacob Anderson here with former world champion Gabriel Laxing-Miralez and the North American savant himself, Jesse J. Chick. Gentlemen, happy Friday. How we feeling?
It's a good Friday. I'm happy. It's more Siege.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the best Friday. That's the best way to start out a Friday.
Yeah, my Friday started a little bit on the bad side. I unfortunately had some pancakes for breakfast, but you know what? We're feeling better now.
Are we starting the day on
That's
this
the
debate
best
already?
way to
Getting
start
ready
a
to get
Friday.
going.
That's how you knew it's a good Friday. You start out with some pancakes and some Siege to follow it up.
Dude, I opened Twitter this morning, and the first thing I see is the thing that you posted from your DMs about what he had ordered, and I'm like, it's 10 in the morning. We're starting this already, dude?
Like I said, Jesse can't hate pancakes. He literally messaged me pancakes this morning, so I don't know. Must have got to him.
Well, just because you're team waffle or team pancake doesn't mean you hate the other one. It just means you prefer one.
I hate waffles.
Right?
I hate waffles.
All right, never mind. I'm going to take back
Pancakes
everything I just said. Here's schedule or standings as we've run through 5 playdays of the NAL so far before the debate gets too out of hand. A couple of things you might notice. OXG, a perfect 12 points, no overtime games, only straight regulation wins. M80 right behind them. The top 3 through 6 at the moment still seems like it's a bit of a battle between some squads. And then all the way down to the bottom, Wildcard finally get to play this week, a doubleheader on the day, as we'll see later on.
Yeah, and notable as well. I mean, that second spot going to be very important to fight for between both M80 and Spacestation. They'll both be playing against each other in our opening game. It's important to get top 2 as well, because if you can get that, you'll get a bye through the first round of the playoffs. So it's a massive advantage to be able to get that first top 2 spots. And so M80 Spacestation kind of on the cusp there. Should be a great first game.
I mean, yeah, to talk about that first game, these are 2 teams that are both like neck and neck with each other, literally at 8-8. I mean, Oxygen, they're holding their breath at that point, and maybe not holding their breath. But these 2, I mean, like you said, to be able to secure that spot going into those playoffs puts you in such an advantage than obviously being those lower teams that are going to now be in a bottom spot.
Oxygen obviously have the potential to start off with a 5-0 start to their stage, which is something they have never done before. But against who? Here's schedule. The guys have already touched on what the first game is. M80 versus Spacestation will kick us off. A showdown of the top 3 that may have implications for who gets the first round bye. OXG's match against the Sonics looks like a doozy at the very end. There is a double header for both Spacestation and Wildcard. The last of the rescheduled games from Playday 1 will take place at the end of our Playday. And honestly, I don't think a game on this card really looks that bad. I'm excited for everything here.
Well, speaking about the card, I am looking forward to that Wildcard Los to follow up immediately after that Spacestation M80, specifically for the fact Los are looking to be way more just improving overall. Their teamwork is better. Yep. And then even from Wildcard, obviously they lost to Beast Coast previously. That was a very close game. But both teams look like they're improving. So it just now comes out to who's going to make their way out of the bottom of the list.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be really exciting. And then after that one, we start to see Beast Coast coming back as well. Was super impressed with how they played yesterday. So to see Beast Coast coming back today, that's something I'm definitely looking forward to.
And the one logo you might have missed from just this graphic here, LG lost both of their games yesterday, and they do not have any games to play today. So they get a little bit more time. I think the normal amount of time that we've had so far, because we start the Super Week next week on Wednesday, which means they have just as much time as they need to lick their wounds from those 2 losses from yesterday so that they can pick themselves back up and get those couple of points to see if they can land in the playoffs after all. But the 2 teams we're starting our day with are kind of shoo-ins for playoffs already. We don't want to get super ahead of ourselves, but most people initially thought that when the stage started. M80 and Spacestation are both 3-1 entering today. They're both having really good starts.
I mean, yeah, you got to feel good. Both teams both made roster changes. Maybe one made a little more of a Jurassic roster change than the other, but still, you made roster changes nonetheless. SSG obviously found their identity, and they are finding the success that both these teams have wanted with the roster changes and figuring out the play styles that they've wanted to implement throughout their play.
Yeah, you can see the statistics as well, both on attack and defense. They're consistent. We've got some teams in the league who are going to be really good at defense, or like, there's not as many, but some very good at attack as well. These 2 teams, they've been very well-rounded in the way that they've been going about this. So for me, they've been looking like the most consistent teams towards the top, other than Oxygen, who have not maybe played the strongest opponents. But they've definitely been looking really, really good so far, and I'm very excited to see them go up against each other.
They're going to get a real test of strength for what their playoff matchups might look like in the future. They've both beaten some really high-caliber teams to get here, but now having this game in the middle of your regular season is really really going to prove if the record that you have so far is worth it, if you've actually earned it, or if it's a little fluky. So we'll see how this game shakes out. Starting with the guys on M80, everybody here had a fantastic game against Dark Zero just yesterday. A couple guys that we highlighted stood up when we were worried that their stats weren't really reflecting what they needed for this team to succeed. But that game against DZ, they just ran away with 6 rounds right at the very end to close that sucker out.
Yeah, I mean, their attacks were very slow and sluggish, but everyone else on the team stepped up very well. And just even looking at the EPS ratings from everyone, Spoyd obviously sticks out. He's been consistent. We've talked about him. He hasn't seemed to tapered off in his career in general by any means. He might not be at the top, but he's still performing nonetheless. And then Noodle yesterday, I mean, had a really good game to set M80 up for that win.
Speaking of Noodle, of all the guys that we called out yesterday about what they need to do to make sure they're really contributing, Noodle did that in probably the best way possible on defense.
Yeah, and we talked about Noodle as a guy who's been having maybe a slow start for M80. He's not had the greatest statistics. He's not been the most impactful. And in the start of this game, he was continuing that trend. We started off with the first half, the first 6 rounds, he went 2 and 4. He was really struggling on the attack to find any impact, trying to play below with some Zofia, trying to make some Ying plays work, wasn't finding a lot of success. And then they switched to defense. They gave him the Solus, and he went 10 and 0 on that second half to finish with an overall 12 and 4 stat line yesterday. Bump him just into the positives, 30 and 31 over 31 and 30, I should say, overall. Noodle really did step it up. But again, we're looking at 1 half over the course of the entire stage so far. So I'm gonna need to see more from Noodle. Great first day, great first pop-off performance on the Solus, but I do want to see more from him too.
Absolutely, and I'm glad that he had that performance though, because both me and you were talking about throughout the beginning of this stage is he hasn't been finding his footing. He hasn't found the tempo on this new M80 roster. But that game, I mean, I would say he's finding it, and it's good to get that start and get that feeling of that improvement, because that can only be a threshold that you now pass, and then again, hopefully continue from there, because the last thing you want is to be that you be your best performance, then you immediately go back to not having that success.
Well, some will make the argument that because you've got Kino and Spoyd and Cameraman and Citizen all on that team, there's sometimes, if there's one guy who isn't popping off in quite the same way, it's probably not the end of the world, but for Noodle to have a game like that is still a phenomenal thing to see that everybody on M80 can step up when the pressure is high. They had that game against DZ, absolutely win their way. Spacestation, for their own part, also met DZ earlier in the season, but they have come out actually from a loss yesterday. The first time the Brazilian Los team gets a dub, it's against Spacestation, and it looked like it was just close enough. Maybe 1 or 2 rounds go the other way, Spacestation still undefeated.
Yeah, SSG, I mean, losing a tough Clubhouse game yesterday, I think Los, despite being 0-3 going into that matchup, showed up and played a great game on Clubhouse. For Spacestation, you look back at that matchup, and while there were certainly some mistakes, I felt a lot of them were very kind of map dependent. They were struggling to get walls open on Club sometimes. They were struggling with some utility play. They did do a good job kind of getting fast and explosive on some of those rounds, but maybe not as often as their opponents did. So there were a couple of falters from Spacestation Gaming, but I'm not looking at that game as like SSG are falling apart, they lost to Los. Yeah. I'm looking at it as well, that's a Clubhouse game. Los were looking better. I still think Spacestation are one of the best teams in NA.
I mean, I can't disagree with that. I mean, they have a pretty good record so far. Just what really came down to it for me was obviously Los coming in with those aggressive plays on those on those attack sides. But looking here at Iconic, this is something that I wanted to look at, his transition from M80 now going into the SSG roster. He still is the main IGL from what Callout told me. He is the man with the plan. He is the final say. And what I found interesting is he's not having that exact same success in terms of just overall the EPS itself. But I think that's because he's still finding the tempo in SSG and what that formula looks like. Because I don't even think the Astralis formula was truly down to a T and refined like this new SSG is. So I think it's just a matter of time that he's going to slot himself in. He's going to figure out the sense of direction of what every player does and knowing what they do and whatever those idiosyncrasies are. And we're going to see that start to develop more, but I do want to see it sooner because I love being able to talk about LeBronic and give him that LeBronic name that he's earned himself. Because we aren't seeing that same success, but I know that it's there, and I just know with more time that we will tend to see that, but I got to see it going into this next game against M80.
I mean, you can make the argument that the record sometimes speaks for itself if somebody isn't brought in to be a superstar. We know Iconic can do it. It just might be a bit strange to not see him topping the lobby at every stage. But one of the guys who is topping the lobby, who we don't talk about nearly enough, is J90. Ashton feels like he gets all the highlight plays on the desk recently, so we got to highlight Jack, because sometimes what he does is either unsung hero or a moment where you kind of go, wait, what was that?
No, I think J9O has long been one of the best players on Space Station. He's often been hyped up as one of the best players in North America, period. His stats have been fantastic through the league so far. I do want to say, we talk about that Clubhouse game yesterday that Space Station played. There were some moments where I thought his utility play could have been better. I thought his Candela play with Ying was not the best that we've seen from him throughout his career, and I also think he had a couple missteps with Thatcher getting some of those walls open. So I think there are areas where he could try to improve, but overall, he's been so consistent for the team that, he's a rock that we need to talk about more on Space Station.
And the fact that Space Station are going to get hardened against M80 to start the day means when they transition and they play wildcard in 4 to 5 hours from right now, if there was anyone that you could get sharpened against, at least it's a team like M80 that seems like they're really firing on all cylinders right now.
It's good to go against a team that, is a formidable opponent in that matter nonetheless, but I don't think they're going to be too worried. I think they're just going to obviously have to focus on this game first and foremost.
Yep.
Fix the little mistakes that you were saying, whether it was map dependent or not in that last game, and apply that here. And again, that goes into what I was talking about, like Iconic, maybe doing a little different in the IGL, maybe a little bit of different calls,
Sure.
Whatever that looks like. I have no doubt SSG is going to fix what they need to fix.
Let's talk maps real quick. Consulate's our pick. Space Station did win this against the Sonics just a couple days ago. Sorry, from last week. First time we're seeing M80 play it. What do we think of the selection?
I think Space Station, I like the way they played this map ban. They do ban out the Clubhouse after struggling on it yesterday. They took it to the last moment, but they did ban it out. And they get Consulate. Great map for SSG. I believe they played it 5 times, and they've only lost it once throughout their history, and obviously they made slight roster moves. But all in all, this is a fantastic map from Space Station. For M80, they've made a few more moves, but it has historically been decent for them as well. But for Space Station, you're going to feel very, very comfy coming back to cons.
And I will say, granted, Space Station, they did get that win over SQ, but that game easily, 2 rounds could have easily switched that, and it could have been a 7-5. And this, we don't even see Consulate here, but because of that win, they do feel more comfortable going to it. But M80, this is where I struggle to see this, allowing this to go through, is they're struggling on attacks. Right. And their attacks are such a hindrance to their performance, and you're playing a map like Consulate where it's chokeholds, you're going through a single doorway, you're going through a double door. There's not a lot of entry points, and if you're slow on that, SSG is going to eat you up on the defense. Whereas SSG's been actually pretty well on attack. So it's a matter of M80 is really going to have to find their footing on these attacks and get into the building, because SSG is going to meet them. It's not going to be a DZ hold where they're going to be slow about it.
I think what that general observation about M80 being slow on attacks, was that mostly a skyscraper-dependent thing? Like we mentioned, you pulled that clip up from the Oregon plan, it wasn't nearly as sluggish, right? Yeah,
so we've seen different styles of M80, right? They have gone fast in the past. The Sonics game where they went against them was relatively fast-paced. I like that a lot. But you're also right that the 2 skyscraper games we've seen have been very, very sluggish from M80. And I do think Consulate plays a little bit more like skyscraper than Oregon. So how this map ends up going, especially starting on attack, it'll be tough to see.
I think this game's a really hard one to predict, and we'll see if the map bans sway what the analysts think. Fox A has already decided Space Station is his pick for this bad boy. Gentlemen, for the North American League Predictions Championship, who we picking? Lax?
I did have M80 going into this, but seeing the map and specifically how M80 has been playing in these tighter maps, I'm going to have to go with SSG for this.
Dang, he does switch his pick after all. Jesse, same idea or what's up?
I do not remember what I picked initially, but I'm also going to stick with Space Station. I'm not going to rock the boat. I think SSG are the fundamentally better team all around, and this map should feel really good for them. So yeah, I'll go SSG as well.
Sounds good. Let's see if that Astralis clutch gene that they harnessed against the Sonics is actually going to make itself manifest in this matchup. Our first game of the day, day 6 of the North American League, starts right now.
Thank you very much, Jacob, and hello, everybody. We are starting with SSG M80, the number 2 team versus the number 3 team, and Sam, I could not be more excited than that.
Yeah, absolutely. We get to kick off the day with something extremely exciting, especially for Iconic going up against his old team. I'd say at a pretty, big impasse in the stage as well.
Yeah, I mean, well, for both of these people, or both these teams, people as well in the case of Iconic, as you said, going up against M80, but a pretty big point where 2 solid opponents for M80 against SSG, SSG against M80, but also a very meaningful point to see who can stay in that second place spot. Could very well prove to be an impasse for either of these teams. Should maybe SSG prove to be a bit better on Consulate, but the socials predictions leaning a little bit towards M80. And to be fair, while SSG do have a solid attacking and defending side, the success we saw M80 hit on that defensive side yesterday with everybody popping off, that does have me a little worried for SSG once we get to that side swap.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's a couple of different things to kind of stare down the barrel of for both teams, respectively, in this matchup. For M80, I definitely think that the desk hit the nail on the head, right? They kind of had some complications on their offensive side of Skyscraper. Consulate, a map where things can get pretty complicated as well. It looks like M80 actually, you know, as we are on the point, kind of trying to deal with that too, as they're going to take away the smoke. So really like that ban. But overall, it's probably something that M80 is going to more than likely try and deal with inside of this game, especially as they'll be starting off on the offensive side.
I gotta say, that's a really surprising ban for me coming out from M80. I mean, obviously it's only a few best of ones and a very new team, so they're no Dark Zero who ban Dokkaebi and Azami every game. But they have shown a bit of a tendency to take out the Fenrir, and SSG, when they played Consulate against SQ, ran Fenrir pretty consistently, and on a map that, as I'm sure many of you know, has very tight chokeholds, long hallways with small entry points. That's where those F-Knots, those dread mines in Fenrir's back pocket are super powerful. So it seems like a very logical point just for M80 to kind of repeat that, to take out that Fenrir. But instead, they take down the Smoke, one of the most notorious anchor operators in the entire game. And first defensive round, we see SSG immediately flex onto that Fenrir and the Solus, which they also ran a lot in their game against SQ earlier in the stage. So obviously, Sam, Smoke, a very mainstay operator, but I have to say, on Consulate, I'm surprised that they feel so strongly about it. They want to take it off the board.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of other operators you can kind of lean on, especially with the current meta. But I don't think it's something that you can knock either. You know what I mean, Carter? Just because it's one of those things where it's like the layering of utility when it comes down to crunch time, especially with some of the stuff we saw yesterday, right? I mean, Smoke can mean so much in some of these rounds where he's able to gatekeep you just a little bit longer than you really want. So I honestly think it's a really good shout for a map like Consulate, where a lot of the times you are looking at the whole map. You know, it's kind of difficult to try and go direct in a lot of these circumstances. So for M80, especially with things being complicated in the first half of their offensive rounds, I don't think it's a bad idea at all. We'll see how it works out. SSG sticking true to their bans and what they tried to remove up against the Sonics. The Sonics the last time around removed Dokkaebi, so they banned Ying instead in that position, but they're still going to remove the Valkyrie.
Just getting rid of that intel, not a bad move at all. And especially when SSG have so many options to bring that intel left up. I mean, we mentioned the Solus earlier, but also Jane, I know, all the way down on the bottom floor, over on the Visa side, playing that Pulse. So there's still plenty of options available for SSG to get that intel, but more specifically, if M80 decide to go for a CEO plant, that Pulse being down below, maybe being able to retake control. No, it's actually, I realize it's not CEO. It's downstairs, first floor, excuse me, but the entry will occur on that top floor side of the map. Everybody from M80 either on the rappel or actually inside of the building, as SSG aren't really concerned about holding the second floor. They know that should M80 move down to put that diffuser on one of the middle floor bomb sites, that controlling the bottom floor, the basement, and having the ability to use any of the C4s they have remaining to deny that diffuser will likely get them the round if it goes uncleared.
Yep, the site is a unique one in that regard. Top floor can be very important, but also the basement, very pivotal when you have operators like Solus, like Pulse, things that can try and deny through the floor. That's exactly what they've gotten here. M80 have full control upstairs, but they're going to have to try and make solid headway in other areas, and that's what SSG's entire strategy is. They're going to try and delay M80's time, force them into a poor execution, and hopefully get some kills via nitro cells and solid angles off this mid-floor position. Fultz is going to risk it. He's going to get the first kill on the cameraman.
Great action with that C4 from Fultz, not even waiting to save it maybe the post plan. So they have Jan, I know, to do that, but Iconic found out off the site, so very good reaction by M80, acting off a very quick intel, but still, not only the kills going SSG's way, the impact is what's really been felt. Ram had already used all her boogies, but Kino, I imagine, was saving a lot of those Candelas for the execute, and Ashen knows that somebody from M80 is going to go for the res, so he won't fully push the issue just yet, move around the corner with the shotgun. Kino's back turned. Fultz is able to pick up another before Ashen even confirms the previously downed Kino, now sends him into the grave. It's a 2v4. A very sluggish M80 attack, but SSG denying as much space from M80 as they possibly can. Spoit, top performing player for M80 so far, coming up from the basement, finds not only M80's second kill, but his second of this first round. There's not much else that M80 can do. Bolts on the run out, cuts down Noodle. Spoit might be going great and will make it a 1v1, so Jan, I know, has to be careful. He doesn't end up trolling a little bit and giving away his position. We will see the IQ make his way to the room where the Pulse is, but it's still very dominantly, or very strongly, an SSG round.
Yeah, I mean, a great show of mechanics there, show of force, you could say as well by Spoit. But at the end of the day, it is an SSG round, and I really like their look on that bomb site. A completely different way of being able to play around that. Sometimes we see some teams just put somebody down there as a little redundancy, but to completely double down, shove Solus as well as Pulse, and maybe somebody else is just trying to assist as well as just, having those last two players sit on the mid floor, try and compete with that top floor presence that you're expecting out of the offense. We haven't seen something just like that just yet, so very well thought out there by SSG. And I love that they didn't try to overplay things either. M80 are doing a lot on that top floor. There's a lot of different things that they're more than likely going to try and reach for to try and solve their issue that they have going on, as they really don't have any picks. And SSG just instead play patiently, wait for M80 to try and make those little moves, and are able to get some nice picks off that.
And for a game that the desk really wants to see M80 start showing up on the attack, it's a good round for SSG, not just that they won it, not just that, they played it patiently like you said, but they didn't really give away the advantage all that much. Now, to be fair, we did see Fultz in the 4v2 go for a jump out on CEO, so a bit of a risky play there, I will say.
Got it,
the man
to be
advantage.
fair.
But he did get it, exactly. And that is sometimes kinds of plays that can cost SSG a player in an advantage like that, is they maybe get a little too aggressive, a little too fast. But if Fultz is winning the gunfights, I'm not going to complain. But overall, SSG weren't giving away that advantage, something they've struggled with a little bit inside of the stage so far. And if we see them not giving M80 any easy openings into these attacks, M80 really might struggle.
Gonna be a top floor defense here by Spacestation, and a lot of issues that teams have had so far when it comes to Consulate is trying to deny the CEO plant. Whether it comes early or comes late into the round, it's just a really key position that the offense looks to try and get the diffuser planted. And I really like what SSG has done here. This is 2 rounds in a row where they've impressed me with what they've kind of reached for, especially with the Tachanka coming in, a solution that we don't usually see brought. But those fire grenades are going to be extremely useful in preventing anything from going down in that area.
And also specifically to circumvent that smoke ban that we saw earlier, I mean, if you're just able to bounce a couple Shumikas around that corner, or even on the admin side right now, just fire some Shumikas in all the way from the bomb site itself down that long hallway to the kind of printer connector area where Cameraman and Citizen are playing right now. I mean, exactly. You see the fire right at that doorway, preventing the full entry from M80. This is a great tactic just to stall them out. 1.5 minutes already gone. And SSG are keeping them from making a whole lot of progress, but Cameraman dashes in. The F-Naut will blind him, and the deployable shield will completely stop him from pushing forward. M80 struggling to deal with this first obstacle.
And this is what SSG has set up to try and circumvent M80 from coming in on this side. This checkers hallway is going to be a really big deal. You can see Citizen's already tried to donate a fire arrow to this situation and hasn't gotten away with too much. EMP out here, but it's going to get eaten up by an ADS. Another one out as well. So hopefully he'll be able to open up something so they can handle Iconic. But so far, it's been so very good for Spacestation, especially after they take up Cameraman and Noodle. They'll go down to Ash and Shotgun.
And you like that Firebolt to push Iconic out from behind the shield. And even though Cameraman is able to find Ash, and he was going for a 1-for-1, going to play aggressive, SSG are holding on, but M80 very quickly acquiring control might allow them to get a couple picks and maybe even leverage this for a diffuser plant. Looking towards the long desk, right where Janino and Iconic are playing. Forrest close behind, but Iconic, another 1-for-1 for SSG to deny the space gained by M80. Not able to retain the advantage for long, but they're whittling down M80's numbers because they know if they want to go to plant this diffuser, if they want to move into the projector position and try to win this in the post, that's one gun down, and Citizen or Cameraman, either one of them will be the only gun left for M80 to work this round with, and both on a bit reduced HP. Bolt still with a couple Shumikas. Does he have a lineup to deny this? As Citizen goes in to plant that diffuser, Bolt still has the LMG out, so this diffuser should go off successfully. Now M80 can start falling back immediately, vacate the premises, and move backward towards the admin position. Now this is a bit difficult for SSG to win. They can maybe cut off that rotation, but this long angle is still very much alive. Cameraman can take the fight, win it, and there's no answer from SSG to try to cover Cameraman. Despite being low HP, Bolts can't even find the angle on the Hibana. Citizen with the wraparound gives M80 there first.
It looked like it was going to go SSG's way as M80 collide with Checkers hallway, but as the gunplay starts to actually happen, M80 with a lot of frags going their way. Space Station, I think that they definitely have the utility to try and handle the scenario, but 100%. M80 with that quick coverage over on that single door side, I think it was just very well done from them. You know, SSG didn't exactly have the read on where the other cross angle was going to be. They didn't want to try and risk too much. Fultz doesn't want to get shot with a fire launcher in his hands. There's a lot going on for Space Station there. And M80 are able to not only compete, but take that situation into their hands fully.
Losing that long desk control as well, you don't feel super comfortable pushing up. Citizen was playing over that area. You feel reluctant to swing because you might end up either exposing your back to the player in that position. Losing that seemed to be, at least in hindsight, the death knell for SSG. There might have been other ways in that they either thought or didn't think of and chose not to pursue, but still, losing that part of the map really hurting SSG by the end. M80 getting a very crucial attacking round on the board. As we saw in the DZ game yesterday, just 2 attacks, one at the start of their attacking half, one at the end, getting the 2-4 was enough to get that game over the line and win it 7-4 without dropping a single round on the defense. Their skyscraper game against LG, another very strong showing on the defensive side. This is a very good team when they can just hold the site or play on a roam or do whatever. But if they can just get one more attack, M80 will be close to that win condition they've achieved in many games at this stage.
Yeah, and so far for a team that has, had a complete, makeover from what they previously were looking like, they've looked fantastic, even given some of these offensive circumstances. Offense is a really difficult thing to try and work on, and try and get built up. And M80 have been actively doing that this entire season, as well as, on some of the most difficult maps to try and win some, attack rounds. This being one of them here on Consulate. Gonna have the double hard breach, actually triple hard breach here, as cameraman also has the Habana, making sure that they are able to get open as many things as they want, including these hatches. Or SSG, and specifically Iconic, is gonna try and stand on their way.
Nice little move up into Visa, shoot the X-Kairos, then immediately back off. Iconic not trying to press the issue too hard. Now cameraman is ready for it. Fenrir probably not able to get away with that again. He will hold on to the Visa position. He can still relay this intel to SSG, say that M80 might be looking to drop down the hatch into server on the back side. And if there is presence on the front, it might not be fully representative of where M80 are pushing from. This could be a backstab. This could be a backside take entirely. Iconic doesn't know the full extent of it, but he does know that somebody's back here, and SSG can react accordingly.
Well, Forrest is going to be in the area at least. Shotgun in hand. A cross right on the door. Immediately delivers on Spoit. This little exchange back and forth in between these two teams. Space Station, though, and J9 knows specifically he'll find his moment. Cameraman and Kino will trade back. It's actually going to somehow, some way boil down to a 1 versus 1 in between Fultz and Cameraman, and Space Station Gaming winning on the basement floor.
Oh, I'm sorry. What's just happened? Could we... What?
It was a backsided assault with a few hatches open. M80 wins a few gunfights initially. Space Station has that nice moment there with a Thorn that takes out Spoit. But yeah, past that, it's just gunfight after gunfight as they continue to double down on the scenario until it gets to that 1 versus 1. I think what M80 really wanted there was for that assault on that backside to try and pull a lot of pressure from Space Station, right? And then try and deliver on the garage side, maybe get a plant down, or just maybe get some extra kills. Just try and crunch things down on the site in the basement.
You gotta give credit to J9O right there. I mean, we see the backside take. Obviously the Thorn is able to get one. We see, there is some resistance on that backside, especially with Iconic adding a second angle to that. But SSG, as you pointed out, or M80, excuse me, as you pointed out, are not only looking to go for the backstab, but also looking to push through that garage wall and try and squish the defense in between. But J9O able to almost single-handedly repel it. Then obviously Kino almost bring it back and putting M80 in basically a 1v1, even though he ends up giving his life away. Just a very hectic round all the way through, but you got to give credit to not only Kino for almost bringing that back, but to J9O as well for putting that into a position where it could be one. I mean, really, the people on SSG, I guess, hitting their shots, they should get the praise. Fultz, J9O as well on the site, but man, what a hectic round for SSG's second defensive win.
Yeah, when it comes to just rounds like that, that's one of those pressure points that M80 is looking to exploit. Maybe it's J9O on an ISO'd position over across the other side of the bomb site from where they have these other people trying to play things out, right? And he's able to get 2 people in that area. That's just a huge moment for Space Station that definitely cannot go unchecked. So M80 now still have that 1 round to their name and more than likely not sweating it too much at the end of the day. SSG is going to go back to this mid-floor site that we saw them run the first time around.
Bit of a change-up, Spoit going to the Deimos that we've seen teams sometimes flex on, M80 also being no different. Very rarely have we seen it be him be a consistent part of a team's attacking strategy. But here, I imagine that pulse sitting in garage for the entirety of the round is probably ringing very strongly in Spoit's head right now. And whether it's the pulse that's no longer with us, as Janino has instead moved to the Warden, or the Solus that is almost assuredly roaming off the site, Spoit with the 3 Deathmark trackers now, looking to hopefully hunt down one of these solo roamers. As often, we'll just see Deimos put in the hands of a really talented mechanical player on any given team and just try to power through a position, hunt down a player to get a man advantage. Half the round's gone, we haven't seen anything just yet, but still potential for Spoit to go that way.
This is just really difficult for M80 right now. Spacestation go back to that same site, but they play it completely differently. We don't have nearly the same amount of basement presence as we once did. See Kino make an adjustment down there just to make sure that there's no fold working its way in from Spacestation that could eventually try and rebuff the plants. But this time around, Spacestation are worried about the top floor, trying to make these angles so that these entryways aren't nearly as accessible for M80. They only have a minute to try and solve this.
Just such a good read by SSG, keeping things one step ahead of M80. So much utility being burned by the attack as well. Both smoke bolts now, both fire bolts, and exactly nothing. He can still hold that vertical angle, but Citizen's able to get the first pick. Iconic actually falls. So SSG have to fight back, not an uncommon position. This team, they might be very strong, they might be second, but they often drop that opening duel, and yet they find a way to fight back. 4v5 into the 4v3, into the 4v2, because M80 have simply not dealt with these vertical angles, and the players remaining on the site from SSG are still able to win some key engagements. Ashen on this yellow stairs has been a menace to society, with the shotgun contesting these close corridors against the Sonics and against M80. You cannot remove this man from the yellow stairs. 3-1 SSG.
Man, oh man, M80. A little mistreated in these 2 rounds for the offensive piano. SSG with 2 amazing setups. I love the basement setup, the immediate adjustment to that top floor. And that round especially pays off, folks, because M80 has to respect the Solus. I want you to understand this. When it comes... Oh, I did not realize we were doing the listen. That's on me. So let's jump on over to M80.
I'm going to bring Tachanka and we do the VP, okay? And if it's Stellars, I think you do the default attack, like clearing top of the Thatcher to plant. Okay, remember to bring the Thatcher, Adam. Okay? Yep. And the other garage, I couldn't see exactly, but I think, like, if you guys want to do kind of almost the same thing, we can bring Ash to try this mirror, and we are going to be able to walk on the hall, or we can just do the thing that we said, you know, to bring the Dokaibi and the Jackal when we kill the guys on top. Mm-hmm. Oh, the Dokaibi is banned, right? So yeah, so I think we bring a dash and we can do that. Like we're gonna try to walk on the hall later, you know. So I think we bring dash to try this mirror. Okay.
Okay. So same attack.
Yeah. Well, maybe they probably heard it, but hopefully, yeah.
Well, maybe listen. Maybe it's possible. Maybe Vivas is just like, guys, only one consulate attack. I mean, what are we gonna do? And they're just all in stunned silence that they've gone down 3-1. That's possible, theoretically speaking.
Yeah, very, very true. But yeah, we didn't actually get to hear anything if M80 did actually end up coming through for y'all on stream. But Carter and I definitely didn't. So I hope they had some good points. I hope it worked out for them. Yeah, to the point that I was talking about before, you know, the timeout happened. I really want you guys to understand that Solus is a nuisance when it comes to trying to get early information. You really can't do it inside a prep phase because she will destroy a huge swath of drones. So you kind of have to commit to things in the round, and for them to try and understand what SSG is doing the second time around on the same site, it just overly complicates things. They had to try and default back into what they thought that they were going for, and things just definitely did not work out.
No, they didn't. And here for SSG, obviously, we've seen M80 have some success. They were able to win that CEO site in a key 2v2, but SSG keep M80 guessing. The sites so far have been second floor, basement, and then exposition on the first. And this time we go to the fourth site, the split archives and tellers, one on the middle floor, one on the bottom floor. So just as we saw in that M80 LG game where M80 were bouncing between bomb sites, going bedroom twice, barbecue once, only throwing out the primary sites here and there, SSG doing something very similar. And for M80, who have struggled to put together attacks so far, I imagine this is just going to be another way SSG are keeping things too, I suppose, fluid for M80 to really figure out how they want to play these attacks. All right, well, that works.
Yeah, great find to start us off. You know, and I was just about to lean into the fact that this admin position is so important to this bomb site, especially because he brought Ram. It can rip up a lot of this flooring and make Tellers a pretty serious option, but SSG are at least going to be able to keep everybody else alive. And Forrest, he takes a lot of risks for Space Station, so this isn't a position they're not used to being in.
Yeah, Forrest is one of those on attack or defense. He's constantly one of those guys who likes to get aggressive and sometimes tries to go for a play that maybe doesn't work. But in this particular case, he's just holding admin. He's just part of the setup. Maybe he swings a little bit too far, but the position itself isn't necessarily bad. Maybe he just tried to take a gamble and didn't end up paying off. But like I said earlier, SSG, almost everybody is negative on the entry going into this game, except Ashen, who is neutral, +0. So SSG very commonly find themselves in these 4v5 positions. They need to work back, and they've still found a way to be the third-place team in the entire league, or the second-place team in the entire league. So if anybody can make this work, it is SSG. And Sam, a minute left. M80 still struggling for control. They might have that vert, but the horizontal is tenuous at best.
It's all going to be about the kills here. That's what's going to allow them to try and move forward. Drone works its way in for Spoid as he tries to open things up for Piano, but the key thing is that the bomb site is positioned on the complete opposite side of the map from here. He's going to get some information. Agumine, though, is going to tag up at least one M80 member, slowing things down even more. And that's just going to be the castle on the site. We did see that player earlier over on Yellow. I don't know if they got droned out. Ult is here on Spiral, and it's a known quantity. No damage done to either party, though. With 25 seconds remaining, something's got to give.
Something does. Ashen gets the 4v4, so M80 lacking the advantage, albeit just for a moment. Kino's able to get the refrag, but Iconic hitting this flank very, very fast, yet very, very late. Moving down the Visa stairs. This could win the whole round as he's one of the only 2 players remaining. Careman trying to plant that diffuser. He's found it, but a key shut down. Spoit weary of it, and nothing J90 can do. Iconic had the call. He had the play, but Spoit barely brings it over the line for M80 second.
A target-rich environment in front of Iconic. And he fizzes out. Just too much going on right in front of his eyes. Ends up getting gunned down before he can get his gun up. An M80 with a pretty solid round there. And I think you had it very well read, Carter. Things were not going well over on that clear for the Piano side of things. But we did have some pretty bright moments. M80 are finally able to coordinate and get their push going for the actual site, get some pretty considerable kills, open things up, and lock out SSG's last remaining site player, the one downstairs. Doesn't really have too many options, especially with Iconic on the flank. They don't want to try and give things up and overplay that position. So instead, they have to try and assist with that scenario. And Iconic ends up losing out that gunfight, dying moments of that round. I think, honestly, both teams in that round doing a fantastic job of operating around their strategies.
Oh, definitely. I mean, both the attacking rounds and now M80 have had to push into the site and go for gunfights. And to be fair, that's been a theme for a lot of teams in the NAL. OXG, Los being a couple examples of teams that execute with only 30 or 20 seconds left and have to bet it all on winning fights. And sometimes it seems very stressful. It seems very put together ad hoc. But that round, to be fair, when they got the vertical control by taking down Forrest, sure, they still need to mount and execute very quickly, but they're still able to make it work. So this might just be a new bit of a pattern. Executes not at 45 or 50 seconds left, but taking a lot of the round. And I was just about to say, if M80 are looking to get their third over the line, I'm expecting maybe some kind of pocket, Amaru, or rush strat. Not necessarily in the next 30 seconds, but something very quickly to get, I suppose, pull the wool over SSG's eyes.
You definitely see that boiling over. I think it's something that M80 is, of all teams could definitely flaunt with. They may more likely be quite talented at. I'll just see if that's what they go for. I think the biggest thing about that last round for me has to be the fact that they do take their time after that initial pick, right? They try and add in that secondary layer to their strategy, make sure they not only have that verticality cover, but also have that other portion working in from the effective backside of the bomb site as they cleared out that other portion of the building. Here we go. And then he's going to fly in J90 with a big kill and a lot of verticality to play into this. The fire's not going to reach Kino, though, and this plant so far, so very good.
I mean, so nice for M80 right there. They have Cameraman on the backside. They're trying to telegraph a backside push. SSG react in kind. Their resources heavily biased towards admin. And now the diffuser comes in, planted on the CEO window, and SSG are left wondering, what the hell do we even do here? Kiba goes off. Ashen trying to get this counter defuse out, but Citizen still got the angle. SSG get the advantage back, but it's just a carousel of bodies thrown at the CEO window. And M80 are able to fend them all off one at a time. Finally get that advantage back. A beautiful run out from J9O. Can he get this diffuser down?
Oh, man.
Kino not on the position. He's got to go on this rappel. Flashbang trying to stop. He sends it in, and he kicks him in the face. Insane play from Kino. I have never, in 4 years of Rainbow Six, seen a round won by a karate kick.
Wow, oh wow. I'm just gonna let that speak for itself. There's really nothing more to say. Look at this right here. Folks, I've played this game since beta, okay? And even not accounting Amaru, I'm just talking about repels, all of it. Any repel swing where you're coming in a window, that counts for melee damage. You can die to that. I've only ever had that happen to me 2 times, ever.
I literally didn't even think, like, obviously I know you can kill someone by Gara hooking into them. That's a very well-known interaction.
I honestly didn't think he'd get that far.
Yeah,
that was the thing for me.
Never in my life did I think he would A, get that far, B, win a round off of it. But to be fair, I mean, J9O has to stick the defuse. The time is gone. It's not like he can hear the Gara hook, then get off. The moment the rope hit that window, J9O probably knew he was dead because he had to stick the defuse. If he got off, it was below 7 seconds or right on the margin. He couldn't get back on. That is an incredibly comedic yet incredibly sad way to end that half for SSG because M80 don't just get 1, don't just get 2. They tie the half at 3-3 on their attacking side.
A hilarious moment that you don't really get to see too often, but at the end of the day, strategically sound, as you said as well. A perfect usage of the Gara hook, even if he doesn't swing to the window and reach the other portion where the bookshelf is, right? Even if he lands right at the window or just before that player, he still gets the kill. There's nothing J9O can do. So M80 able to get that to go in a pretty creative way at the tail end as well. It's a 3-3 here, and now SSG has to try and deal with the qualms of an offensive half on Consulate.
You can see immediately Ashen. I mean, this is the king of, well, that's a bad time for me calling him the king of yellow stairs, as Noodle has taken him down as the first pick. He at least loves playing there. Attack or defense, he seems to always find himself on yellow stairs with a shotgun, making sure that his opponents can't play there, but well, Noodle's cut him down. So that initial entry point for SSG, it will allow them to get further control off of what he's been able to acquire, sort of riding his coattails, even though he might no longer be playing in the round. They have the second floor control. They can start moving down to the middle floor. But M80 have the pick, and one thing they did great against DZ yesterday was getting either a 5v4 or a 5v3, and then just falling back. Not getting too aggressive, not playing off the site, just forcing the attack to clear them, and what's happened here? 5v4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players, all on the bottom floor.
I've gotten the panels open. Have some verticality playing into this as well. Now it's just about searching for where this plant can potentially go down. They want to try and smoke off these angles, but that begs to be spammed and is going to be. Forrest with a lot of damage dealt him. Kino's going to run up and more than likely just simply try and spam again. He finds it with the deagle. M80 ahead on bodies as well as Kino will attempt a risk, and he gets gunned down. 2 versus 3 in favor of the defense, as they don't really have to do too much here. They have to see how SSG wants to try and deliver, as the case is down right inside the breach.
They know SSG have to push. I mean, once Kino has put that diffuser on the floor, somebody's got to retrieve it, whether it's Foltz or J9O. It doesn't really matter who. M80 know they have the advantage. They know they are favored to win this round now. They even have Spoit on the Solus, theoretically able to spot when that case is in the animation, when it's being put down, or whether it's still there in its position. You might not be over there, but it's still a theoretical possibility. J9O has crept in, though. He's picked the diffuser back up, and Foltz has dropped. That sound cue will go off, and Citizen reacts accordingly. The 2-piece to end it off. M80 take the lead.
And a great round there from M80. Play perfectly into what the setup is on that basement level. I love the late flank, especially from Spoit there on the Solus, playing up the teller's stairs, just making sure to be a thorn in the backside of SSG as they try and set up for that plant. And honestly, I don't think the plant is the worst idea in the world. The biggest issue there for them is that smoke on the breach soaks up a lot of their line of sight too. So it just makes it hard to try and cover if somebody is able to make that cross like we saw for Kino. and he's able to get things done pretty easily. You know, just spam right in the center of the smoke with a Desert Eagle, and that's about it for the round. The case goes down, M80 trades out favorably, and there's nothing really Space Station can do. M80, even past that point, still keeping things a little bit open with Spoit on that mid floor as well. As well.
And you gotta say, for someone who, I mean, went off the M80 roster after the Atlanta Major in, I mean, rather quiet fashion. Obviously, the whole Monty play got some bad press for Kino, and when he was dropped and we saw, Yaga come in during SI, I think a lot of the community was okay with that move happening, unfortunately. But talk about a comeback for Kino. Just a great stage so far. On that attacking side, of course, we've seen him have great games, just pushing through and getting 1 or 2 kills on a given position. But even right there, something small, just making the play to push in, get aggressive, deny the diffuser. Kino has had a great resurgence on this new M80 roster. He's the 2nd highest rated player, and in that particular round, completely stops and executes single-handedly.
Space Station Gaming, working things in from this admin side. Have the bees. Good amount of soft destruction as well. And not only that, but they also have Iconic to boot on the IQ. So they'll at least know where a few of these traps can lie. Also potentially what Kino can try and boil over. Ashen is going to try and dedicate himself back to the drone. This side of the building, kind of hard to work from sometimes, as we've talked about. That rather that checkers hallway can always be a very, very big issue. SSG going to try and deal with that. Let's listen in now and see what they are trying to set up for on this side of the building.
He just layered the red, I think.
He layered it? Nice.
Good kill, bro.
They're gonna fight here now.
Here. Let me drone top here. We're good.
Yeah, there's one on the combo box. I think he's going to
I'll tell us what a catalyze here.
heard.
Okay, he's just playing red, backed up.
Fender
Other
red, I
guy-
could just get in the glow.
Yeah,
Just sit
Fender
and
red.
look,
Yeah. Oh, he's playing on the con wall.
That's fine, Brock,
I'm
just
about to
shoot.
get parked on. Yeah, I'm shooting.
That's fine.
Yeah, let's just.
I got
ready. I'm walking Teddy here.
He's back tucked.
Yeah,
Back
Dave,
tucked.
Dave, I'm hopping
Still
Tonka.
tuck, I think. Still has to be tucked. Still has to be tucked.
I have your below, Jack. Still
Just
tuck
wait.
hurt. Bosco hurt.
Wait for the pull. Fulton, you can delay.
Alright,
it.
yep.
Okay.
Guys, I can flip C to the pool.
Tuck, guys.
Turn. I'm just
Walk
walking
in
out like
red,
that.
walk in red and kill this guy. Walk
I'm
in
gonna
red.
float. I'm
Wait,
gonna
no,
flip
emo audio.
Hurt. I'm
Okay,
putting
emo
zero.
okay, guys, emo and tuck. Emo and tuck.
No, I'm flipping zero now. Yep, just
I need a glow.
See you.
Yes,
I
you
need
tuck.
dead.
Nice,
Emo,
tuck that.
emo
Emo dead.
dead.
Listen. Hold.
Nice.
One, glow. Swing it out close.
Let them
go glow.
Let them go.
We
Let's
go
go.
glow.
Glow.
Yeah,
Kill.
lead jet.
Glow below. Could be yellow.
He went out.
He wrapped. He
Ran
ran down.
down. Intel. It's
Yeah, we're good.
I have to reload.
3-man execute.
Yeah.
He's gonna be
Wait,
lounge
who's the
side.
last off? Do we know?
No, he's going Teddy. He's Teddy
this
right now. He's gonna be like,
We
he's
get
either
top
be
down,
lounge or
double
lower spiral.
I'm on spiral.
I can top down. I can top down. Yep. Leave yellow flank.
Dave, I have no.
No, we
Yeah,
don't.
drop the
Really.
yellow. I can flank her. Just drop the
I
yellow.
can
I can play yellow fight.
You saw that jammer.
Yeah.
Do we know where 3-man
We don't- we-
execute right now?
Rock solid here.
The no's gonna be garage, bro.
One yellow,
Sauce is dead.
2 hatch here.
Yep.
Heard. Go yellow.
I'll go yellow.
Jay.
Can we get info for this?
No. I
Audio
think we just got a
tellers,
crank.
audio. It's audio
So
tellers.
smart.
Are we ready? I'll lead first.
Three.
I'll lead first. I go first. Yep.
Drop.
Dropping. Yep.
Here for small room.
We score, Expo.
Okay, coming.
I'm cracking plant.
Plant.
Cracking plant.
Books.
My plant. Kill books.
Pillars or bench side.
Bench.
Sure.
Yeah. Let's try.
Sure.
I mean, I gotta say right there, we see a decent execute from SSG, right? They're able to recognize a lot of the positions. We even see Forrest taking the lead to try to move in for the diffuser. But I think the key thing that we saw, even going back to the mid-round, that player in checkers, Sam, getting away from SSG. They had the Jackal ping on him. You hear the calls, go kill, and then he backs off down Visa stairs, and that's where the round starts falling apart, because at that point, the intel for SSG is lacking. Pillar player, new info to SSG. Even that Azami that backed off earlier, new info once that Jackal goes for the swing and ends up falling. So those defenders going unnoticed by SSG, specifically in the late round, completely disrupting that execute. Great 2v3 from M80.
Yeah, 100%. And that was perfectly highlighted with the amount of information that SSG had, right? Post, the player being able to escape the filter that was Space Station on that top floor. I think that they had a lot going for them. They had a good understanding of where people's positions were, and they had a really good idea as to how they wanted to go about things. Let's put 2 on the hatch. Let's try and get this thing to go down in behind the piano. The biggest moment at the tail end of that round was M80 being able to play back through the other portion of the bomb site and getting that big kill on the piano swing right there, right? That completely shuts down Space Station's play. You really can't commit to a plant in the same way, especially with the other route working its way in from M80. I think they did a great job of not allowing SSG to use that vertical position to the fullest advantage, getting some extra kills on top of something where a lot of the heavy lifting was already done in the early round.
By the way, always nice to listen into SSG. Is now down 5-3 on the defense, unfortunately. Despite taking the win over Sonics, 7-5 the last time they played this map inside of the NAL. M80 in a very comfortable lead right now. The closeout advantages and fight back in 2v3s. Now if they can defend the top floor, win 3 sites in a row, they will move to match point and secure their position amongst the types of OXG 4-0. Sure, M80 might have lost the game, but they'll be right behind them at 11 points if they can close this out in regulation. As you move back into the actual round in front of us, Sam, another Tachanka this game.
Oh, we most definitely do. And again, it just goes back to that smoke ban, right? I think the other thing on top of that, obviously, is that Tachanka does have a lot of utility. You can expend a couple of these for fun, unlike smoke, where a lot of it's got to be front and center, right on the money, exactly what he was intended for at the beginning of the round. So it does, you know, lend itself to a little bit of more flexibility at the end of the day, too, even though you are that 3 armor. Is the SSG not wanting to risk too much in this opening minute and a half either? Very similar to what we'd seen the last time, just trying to understand what is set up on this top floor for M80.
Some of the swarm grenades go out from Fultz. Doesn't really provoke either an execute or even really a response from M80. A lot of patience, a lot of positions still held by the defense. Utility also held. Ashid's able to start things off in a cameraman. Defender found rotating inside of admin. Good cutoff angle from SSG there to get the 5v4. The Checkers hallway, still the key obstacle in their way.
Space Station have this lead now. One thing that all of these offenses, at least for the rounds that we've seen so far here on Consulate, have shared is slow down time right after this happens. They don't try and get on the accelerator. They don't want to try and oversell things. Instead, a lot of times it's reassess and reassert. That's exactly what we get at a Space Station. They kind of set a front over on this admin side, and you can see a few players pull off. They have Force down low as well, who can make good on the informative promise that they have on that top level via this skeleton key. It's going to be Fultz, though, that goes down. A lot of this coming in crunch time now as we equalize at 4-4.
Noodle not only denying space, but also taking down Fultz with that key utility on the Grim. Nobody able to follow up or really be used. J9O caught by himself, or at least Ashen is there to trade from the bathroom window, so Kino cut down, but Iconic just asleep at the wheel, walking up long hallway. Spoik tags on for 2 as Ashen also pushing the double door, and Forrest iced out of round 9. Outside on the projector balcony, finds himself easy fodder for the guns of M80, and these defenses have barely even looked like they're forcing effort from M80.
Now, Space Station get the initial kill, but the audible call, that adjustment that we see them go for, it gets completely cut off at the pass. M80 getting some very serious kills on those rotations, and not only that, but a big moment over on the admin side too, as they're likely able to shut everybody down. Let's jump in now and see what SSG has to say during this timeout.
So towards the end of these rounds, just get the info, then at that point just hit. Get info once and just hit. That's all we're going to be doing. We're going to make an adjustment on these entries right here. We're going to start bringing the gang admin side right here to catalyze and get that foothold. I'll let you guys talk about that if I'm not talking. For the garage attack right here, our entry pattern is going to be 2 admin, 1 CO cage flag side. That's going to be the thermite, 1 jogger, 1 B2 side, bring the gang admin. Piano, same thing, bring the catalyze from admin side. Next CEO, I'll let you guys kind of decide what you want to do with that. Let's get the Ying in there though, either for the CEO side for the yellow crank or do it for the admin side based on how they adjust from that last one. Like I said, to remind again, make sure on the executes we're getting multiple points of pressure. Drone wants them to crank. We got a big tempo on these guys. Let's do telegraph at the ending shots.
Third.
Crank it, fellas.
Let me get the Ying. Let me get the Ying.
I think it's a really strong call from SG, to be honest, Sam. I mean, as we saw call out say right at the beginning of that tactical timeout, they're taking too long. They're either going for those rotations too late, taking too long to execute. And so what's the immediate call in terms of the operator change? Bring it Ying, an operator that is sometimes banned in SSG's games. That's been left up here, but hasn't really been used. They've been focusing a lot on the Grim. Basically, Grim and Ying, the 2 main execute operators in the meta right now, are 2 really strong ones, often brought in tandem. But SSG have really only been bringing that Grim, and something we haven't brought up was the lack of focus on the Ying, and that's the call made, to try and make those execute executes happen to make them act off that intel and actually go into the site, bring that Ying, use those Candelas either to make the entries more effective or the executes more impactful.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that, highlights this perfectly as well for Spacestation so far is that their opening moments have not been bad, right? So if they're able to find something that is a catalyst for that mid-round where they don't have to slow down and try and reassess things and allow M80 to kind of get some footing, and not only that, in a lot of moments, pull ahead of them, I think it's something that can definitely work for SSG. They got to pull out some special sauce right now because M80's 1 round away from winning Consulate 7-3, and that just simply can't do.
No, that's not going to work at all. Especially going back to Garage. Remember, they tried to go for that extra
lineup.
Minute 15, and look at that. Blows up the exothermic, but still SSG coming away with a big win 30 seconds, and they might lose an exothermic in a completely unrelated sequence of events. They find the Solus as the first pick. Spoit wielding that Specchio. Citizen might be the top performer here, but taking off that operator and that player combo early on, you are not going to complain if you're Space Station.
Yeah, absolutely. Spoit is somebody that you do not want on the field. He can just win a round entirely under his own volition. So, that being said, SSG will more than likely breathe a sigh of relief. Going in off Skylight. So far, so good for Space Station. And didn't really expect them to try and immediately jump into things, especially with that pick coming so kind of openly over on that initial clear for Space Station. They still want to try and build things up around the map, see what M80 want to try and do with this mid-round. And so far, M80 just going to play right at the gates. They want to try and hold on to these stairwells. They want to try and hold on to these key access points. And that's what they'll try and stick to. Try and stick to these guns and see if Space Station want to do anything with these remaining 30 seconds before we get down to that crunch time once again.
I mean, and if we've highlighted the Ying, if it's received a lot of attention from Callout, the coach of SSG, we need to see those Candelas be impactful. Jesse brought up that when Janano was wielding those Candelas yesterday, there wasn't a lot of impact from them, even when they were going in for the execute. Obviously, Foltz playing her here, Sam. But if we need to see this execute work, whether the diffuser goes down or whether it's SSG winning the round off kills, the vertical control, sure, but in combination with that execute utility needs to land. The Candelas have gone out first, but only one from Foltz. Likely just to bait out some utility for M80 before they start actually aggressing. Another one now to try to acquire control of the spiral stairs. So it's not all dedicated to the execute, but this is where the flood comes in. At least from Foltz is able to apply a little bit of pressure at the bottom of the spiral stairs now. It's execute. It's got to come now as the third Candela rings.
Forces some big kills. Foltz is going to try and bully his way in, at least be able to get one with the LMG, all down to just Cameraman, who has to rip and tear his way back into sight from the server side. Space Station simply bullying their way onto site. I think M80 a little caught off guard with that delivery. We have 2 people drop inside of that Teller's Hall hatch, as well as Foltz working his way down spiral and throwing those Candelas in on kind of a side angle right there. It works swimmingly for SSG. I think M80 just got completely discombobulated.
And the fact that we already see those Candelas have some decent impact, not even necessarily the Candelas being the deciding factor, but you saw the confidence it gave SSG to actually add that angle bottom spiral. To allow Foltz, uses one to get down, uses another to preempt the double hatch drop from SSG right to the left of that bottom spiral entrance. And then SSG were able to move just a lot more confidently. Not only are M80 discombobulated, but just the fact that they knew it was clear, and even if it wasn't, that the gunfights were advantage towards SSG because your opponents are likely blind. The movement felt a lot quicker. The execute felt a lot more and ended up being a lot more decisive. That's just one attack, though. A good one from SSG, a solid flood into the bottom floor. Now as M80 go to the split bomb site. The Ying can obviously be useful here, but we'll need to see another successful acquisition of the vertical, or, I suppose, Sam, could theoretically have a direct take, but as Ashen locks the Amaru, they probably want the vert.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say this, though. When it comes to this bomb site, there's a lot more moving parts, isn't there?
Oh, yeah.
It can be a full roam going on. They can try and hold all the way over to, Big Garage. There's a lot of different things that M80 can try and do with their setup. So SSG is probably going to do quite a bit of searching, at least initially, to understand what they have going on. Spoit, speaking of which, all the way over near CEO on the top floor, has hatch access as well, as he'll be getting at least an initial read on where the IQ will be positioned.
That's just a nice bit of extra info, but I imagine even without spotting Ashen on that Specchio. M80 probably anticipating that there will be some presence from SSG on this yellow area. Flashbang will go out, maybe just to put some fear in the heart of M80.
Oh.
Make them question it, but right as the IQ goes up, the flashbang to facilitate Forest entry up from the bottom floor, M80 drop down. They don't try to fight SSG upstairs a minute in. They'll move not to the site itself, but instead to exposition down below. So still, some control denied for SSG. Some roamers that they have to worry about if they want to go for a plant on the middle floor, but even the bottom floor to some extent, with that Solar still up above. But it's still a good show from M80, trying to pull things back slowly and not forcing things too hard against SSG.
100%. I love this because M80 have done a really good job of holding map control and getting an understanding of where SSG wants to try and set up, at least initially, and adjusting for that. They didn't try and take a gunfight. They didn't try and do anything. They said, okay, this is how you want to try and do this from this side? Awesome. We're going to position like this, and we're going to force you to try and find a solution. Solve the puzzle there, my friend. And so far, SSG have been trying to find out exactly what that solution is. It's going to start off with Ashen at the bottom of Spiral as he'll take down Spoit, but there's still a lot to do.
Still a lot to do, but 2 times now they've been able to find Spoit on that Solus last round, and now here, they even got a 5v3. Iconic cuts down Citizen, the 2 top-performing players for M80 in this match so far. So how are the remaining 3 going to step up to stop SSG from mounting this comeback with just another round on top? Cameraman knows that the push is coming through exposition. The Kibos will stall out SSG for a decent bit of time, but they still have that final Candela to get the Hibana inside of the site. Noodle finds Forest. But this plant is going down. The C4's got to come through. It's got to land, and indeed it does. No post plant for SSG. Noodle and Kino both shift the tides in M80's favor, but Iconic catches the pulse lacking. Kino with his back turned. He's got a bead on Cameraman's position on the opposite side of Server, but can the Azami hit the wrap as the diffuser goes down? Cameraman now tagged, made worse for wear by that DMR, and Noodle's all the way in Narnia, while Cameraman's inside of the site. Noodle going for a lengthy retake over by Yellow Stairs, so Janano has time to get into position, even finds Cameraman down below as Noodle is running out of time to bring this round back from the 3v2 advantage acquired from the good graces of his teammates. 1 HP, 2, all of SSG have moved down below. They've got the vertical angle to deny any counter diffuse from the defense. And SSG now 1 round away from OT.
Whew, that was a close one right there. M80, with a couple of different considerations at the tail end of that round. The Noodle flank, definitely kind of a miscalculation at the end of the day. Just definitely did not have the time to try and achieve that, especially with how things were going for his teammates over on the other end of the map. But either way, you got to definitely give it to Iconic as he was able to handle things in the basement and kind of open things back up for Space Station at the tail end of that as well. As M80, I think, honestly had a very good idea as to how to play defense on that bomb site, slowing SSG down a bit. But those 2 initial picks did a heck of a lot of damage to M80 because once it gets down to, those hotly contested moments in between both of these teams, M80 actually does an awful lot of heavy lifting. I mean, there is just that realm of possibility. If they do have 1 extra body, maybe they do end up picking up that round. But instead, SSG get those initial beautiful picks after M80 reset themselves in the mid-round. And not only that, they get the round too.
And as you said, if Iconic maybe either doesn't make that play, decides to play it safe instead of going for that big moment, dropping down the hatch to get the kill, or if he just misses his shots, that could still be M80 with the round. Going from the 3v5 to the 3v2, that really, as you pointed out, is where the round shifted tides back into SSG's favor. Now, they can just win this basement site, answer M80's flawless site rotation with one of their own. Of our first overtime game of the day. 2 rounds now, Sam. Hate to point it out, especially because he's doing so well, but Spoit on the Solus, whether it's an early death or even the opening pick, with 1 minute 30 seconds left, the Solus has not had the impact M80 want.
No, most definitely hasn't. But I will say this, at least he's staying confident, right? You don't want to see him switch to something and start playing closer to side and doing these things, especially on a map like Consulate. This is a map where map control matters so unbelievably much. And Spoit is supposed to be the one that thwarts that game plan for Space Station. So he's staying dedicated to that. See if him staying true to himself gives them any benefit into this mid-round. As of right now, it's just going to be info processing as well as some utility game for SSG. The Rotero is doing a lot of that, at least in the moment.
Finding that bulletproof camera that we saw earlier, also just trying to destroy other bits of bulletproof utility inside of the site. SSG's positioning that we saw earlier, we saw ults all the way up by that admin position, but it's mainly garage-sided SSG at the moment. Not necessarily going to flood in through the wall, but certainly in terms of finding, there we go, finding early positioning and finding early control. SSG biased towards the front. Meanwhile, we do still see that one player on the backside, and the Spoit cameraman duo has found that lone droner on the backside. Will they find him? Who's to say? But at that point, M80 are pretty confident that SSG's early round control is pretty focused on the front.
Nothing too crazy going on the top floor either. SSG already done with their droning. Start moving in on this mid-level. Likely want a few vertical angles at least inside of Piano. Probably be up to Forest to try and break up with the breaching charges, but also have the secondary shoddy of Ashen. But it's going to be very minimal. As you can see with the lineup, they don't have too many things to try and add to that vertical fold. Now for M80, the time has come. It's down to the gunfights. It's down to the fun stuff. And sometimes that's what it takes. It takes those first 2 minutes to try and process things, especially for this offensive side. That's what we've seen so far. And it's allowed M80 to keep full control of this area. There is somebody directly behind Ashen right now inside of that hallway. It's going to be Spoit. And oh my, has this been a huge misread by Spacestation? It looks like it has.
No.
They still have 6 drones too.
What a mistake, Spoit just waiting. We're hoping that maybe SSG can push in, but this entire take might be completely foiled
Oh my God!
What? The Solus! But they've all lined up for the Jackal. Is the flank even going to matter? He finally hits it. He gets one pick. He gets a second on the pre-fire. And a round that could have spiraled towards disaster has instead been a solid M80 win. As Spoit just barely brings it back from the brink. He spotted the case going down. Can Forrest get off in time? Solo HP. It's not even the Solus to do it. Cameraman shuts him down with one well-placed shot all the way from the other bomb site. And M80 stopped the comeback. They deny even a single point for SSG. They win 7-5.
It's max regulation and beautiful comms there for M80 that wins them the game as well as the round. I mean, what a flank there by Spoit. You said it yourself, not really accomplishing a lot in the previous 2 rounds on the Solus, but that round making it matter most. And most definitely using that Solus utility to the fullest advantage, knowing that there's no drones around that are active, knowing that he can sit inside of that hallway and just play patiently. He goes completely unnoticed by Spacestation, and he's one of the sole reasons that M80 is able to take care of that last round of regulation.
Such a brutal... I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That took it out of me. I'm really sorry, but...
Oh, man.
Anyway, also just a brutal way for SSG to go out, man. I mean, they play the round pretty well up to that point. Every defender just right in front of Ashen, and he moves into the backside. And just one missed drone with, as you said, 6 drones on the board. It's a very costly mistake in round 12 for SSG, but a mistake nonetheless, and maybe, well, not maybe, it did end up costing them a map that is typically quite good for them. But that is map 1 done, and I imagine if you thought that we were amazed by that play by Spoit in round 12, the desk after this break will have a lot to say about it too.
The best part about games between 2 teams currently in the top 3 is that most rounds are probably set to be a highlight reel. Games in a best of ones that are spectacles like this are usually reserved for majors, but we get it here in the NAL, and there were so many moments throughout that game that had us either out of our seats or wondering what the hell one team did to deserve actually getting the victory. It was close up until the very end, where it wasn't because of that last play that Ashen should have known there was somebody sitting in the back. There's just a bunch of stuff to break down from this game. It was a lot of fun.
I mean, I want to talk about SSG specifically because we were talking them up quite a bit, that they were looking like the better team going into this game overall, but fundamentally watching how they played today, they had so many hiccups that were causing them to lose these rounds that even in the first half, they probably could have went up 4-2, but it doesn't matter. M80 still recovered. They won those rounds, but SSG really didn't show up today, in my opinion, fundamentally.
Yeah, I mean, Spacestation Gaming, they squeaked out 2 attacking rounds. M80, they got 3. really liked how they were able to focus the plants a couple of times there. They were able to really get in and just finish the plant in time, often barely winning out on those attacking rounds. But that's what matters. That's what Siege is at the end of the day. Who can squeeze out those really tight rounds? And at the end of the day, it was M80.
Let's do a check on how some of those plays went. The first one we have to talk about, that karate kick from Kino. Round 6, the Omaru play. He has to go in and plant, and then he finishes it too.
Yeah, so Kino, I want to watch him through this whole round. First of all, getting in obviously gets the plant down. This is the basic Omaru play. His teammates are distracting around admin and Spiral. He's, of course, got Citizen on the cover, and then he jumps out, and he doesn't get on Repel for the entirety of this round, because he knows, A, he's got his teammates on it, right? Citizen starting on the window. He's going to have other teammates around that can play these windows too. And B, he can play in support from down below. A, he's got to stop the runouts if there's anybody trying to jump out the windows, but B, he can still throw flashes up through this window. He can still shoot at this Kiva barrier as he currently is, and he's purposely staying off the Repel so that he can do the play that he eventually does go for. Now, there will be a flank coming through from Faults. He's going to go bottom yellow to try to run out of this doorway and make the play happen. There it is. So he goes out, but then instead of continuing to push forward and pressure Kino, he gets a little bit nervous. I don't know what it is, but he decides, I'm going to run back inside the building. Kino then is able to jump on in after that 7-second mark goes down, knows that whoever's in the disable is going to be there to get killed by the Omaru hook. Perfectly played. And then I wanted to highlight this as well. This is the fantastic util play with Kino, throwing those impact grenades to take out the exothermic charges. He double impact tricked Forrest on the exothermic. And listen, I was one of the guys that was relatively critical of Kino when he had those poor plays towards the end of last season. So I want to step up and make sure I'm the guy also saying he played fantastic today. I think since the stage started, he's been really good. And although it's not always reflected on the KD, these big brain plays are what make Kino a fantastic player.
The crazy part is that one play from Kino, it wasn't the only attack round that M80 started with, but as soon as that happened, it felt like it was a downhill slide up until M80 reached match point, because 3 straight attacks fail from Spacestation immediately after that kick happens, and SSG kind of have to claw from behind a bit.
I mean, you gotta feel good when you scissor kick someone in the head to win the round, especially when it looks like it was gonna be a losable situation to begin with. And I mean, I was surprised at how well SSG was recovering that, but that was a huge heads-up play from Kino to, I mean, kick that dude literally in the head off the bomb. I mean, that's the best way to possibly do that.
Where did he finish on the leaderboard overall? I want to double check stats real quick and see where he landed, because he was already having a phenomenal stage up until today, but it's just a stat pattern. Citizen had a really good game. I don't think there was anybody on did anybody on M80 disappoint on the day overall? I don't think anybody did. Even Cameraman had a decent game for being an IGL.
No, I think just looking across the board, I mean, everyone's playing extremely well. I talked about Noodle the other day. I talked about Citizen the other day. Just both these players being able to find their tempo. Obviously, you touched up on Kino specifically. I'm happy to be seeing Kino perform in the way that he is, given the history that he had from his last stage and the performance. I think, you know, just because you're on this one team that looks super good doesn't mean you're always going to be the best. But I think this is a roster that allows Kino to really flourish and really show off his talent. Again, Spoit's performing extremely well. And even for Cameraman being the IGL, he might not be the best performer, but he is setting his team up for success. And they walk away with 3 points today.
Yeah, and I mean, we did see a couple of lower numbers on the Space Station side, unfortunately. I'm unfortunate to see Forrest the way that he's been playing the last couple of games. His stats really haven't been there, and it's disappointing to me. I'm a little confused that we haven't been seeing more shield play from Forrest. Yeah. Obviously, the Monty was banned in this game, so we weren't going to see it, but even in previous games where Monty has not been banned out, we've not seen a whole lot of shield play coming through from him, despite it being effective the few times they have used it. So it's tough to see some of these players maybe not quite finding the success that we've seen from them in previous stages. But you know what? That's why the season is multiple games long. That's why we got a long round robin. So there's still plenty of time to pick that up.
Let's pull some other clips up. Round 8 in the middle of SSG's attacking failures. Their woes as they were just trying to get into the building, make some sort of impact. Yeah, there were a couple of miscues we noticed.
Yeah,
here.
This was confusing right here. I mean, Ashton has no intel outside of knowing he's there, just runs, gets a free kill. They know that Citizen is right here, and you hear the communication because we had the play in here. And Citizen just gets out for free. They knew exactly where he was. He was getting the Jackal scan. And then had they finished Citizen here, they would have only had to focus on this 1v1 here for this post plan. It would have been a 3v1. And then this round specific, Ashen, you are literally Jackal. You put up your Jackal scanner here, you would see Spoit's footsteps here. Yeah. And he doesn't. And I mean, it's a huge play here from Spoit. Obviously, it's a little risky, but you don't know that there's a Jackal right here on the other side. But Spoit played this extremely well and ends up closing out, I think, 2 or 3 kills there, still netting the round nonetheless. But this is what I was talking about in the beginning of this, is SSG played not into their best strengths. They didn't play into the basic fundamentals of Siege. They really were just, they look confused. They weren't even there. Even when it went to the player cams, you would just see, you know, everyone's kind of slouched over. It's like, okay, like on to the next round. Even when Call-Out was giving his talks, like no one was like being super hyped or vibing. Like at that point, you kind of get a sense of the general direction where the team's atmosphere is at, where everything is going. And I mean, it definitely was displayed throughout the gameplay.
Well, the guys who had the biggest vibes on the day were M80. Every single time it cut back over to their cameras, it seemed like everyone was laughing, having a grand old time. So let's check in with Chief Vibes Officer Kino to see how everything went in this game. Dude, I need to talk about round 6. I need to talk about the karate clip. What in the hell was going through your head as that execute was happening? And then what was the reaction from your teammates when you finished the round as Amaru?
Listen, Jacob, I'm not gonna lie. I literally just posted the clip on Twitter. No credit. I have no credit on it. I was completely tunnel visioned on the guy outside yellow. I was like, if I repel, he's gonna kill me, even though he ran away. And then I think Camera and Spoy at the same time, they were like, Amaru win, Amaru win. I'm like, okay. Well,
I'm just gonna go and hope for the best, dude. Yeah, I feel that.
I mean, I literally have in my notes for the 6th round, Kino kicked someone in the head. Like, that is literally my notes for that round specifically. And you answered my question right there, but I guess the biggest thing here was you guys still are a little slow on attack. There was a few misplays on SSG's end, but you guys did find those recoveries. I mean, what were the comms that were going through a lot of those situations?
So we had a really good game plan against them. We knew what we were gonna do. Our attacks are not supposed to be this slow. I don't know, probably just like nerves.
Speed it up.
Being a little more careful. Like, thank you, Max.
He's telling you, bro.
Great
He's the
solution,
coach.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah. In practice, you know how it works. Everyone's like, you run out of spawn. Nobody checks for spawn peaks. So everything is a little more delayed in the match. And that just ends up costing the entire round. So that's something we gotta work on for sure. Can't be that slow. Can't be losing on time. We lose so many rounds on time. It pisses me off. But
I get it.
I think we need some time.
No, for sure, 100%. You guys are looking good, and you got a clean 3 points today.
Kino, listen, I know that we've had some times in the past where I've been maybe critical of your performance, but I want to say I think you in particular have been playing really well this stage, and I just want to say, like, with this new team of M80, with the new roster that you're playing with, do you find it easier to kind of fit in? Do you find that you're maybe fitting, you're able to find your play style a little bit better with these guys, or do you think that it's just, you know, you're happening to play better based on the time frame of you this stage versus last stage?
Well, I think it is a little easier with this team. We have a very experienced leader behind us now. But also, I'm not, like, I did play really bad last, like, year, in the entire year pretty much. And I feel like getting benched was a good thing for me because I had to, like, you know, change the way I play, you know, really focused on myself, really. And it's been a good thing overall. So honestly, I'm glad it happened. It changed me, and I'm thankful for my teammates for dropping me.
It absolutely. One of the things you never hear anybody say at any point ever. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I do want to touch up on that. I mean, what do you think your biggest problem was last year, and like, what's the biggest improvement now?
Monty, and now we ban it. So it's
it's that cut.
It genuinely is just that simple sometimes. One more thing for you, by the way. It's not a question, but next time we do a winners interview with you guys, can you do your best to convince Cameraman to jump on here so we can talk about what M80 is like from the IGL's perspective? Can you do that for me?
I got you, Jacob. Next one, next win. I don't know if he'll come, but I hope he does. Then I'll make sure he's on it.
Sounds good. I certainly hope that it does, Leo. Thanks a lot. Again, congrats on the dub. We'll see you for Super Week. All right, dude?
Thanks, Jacob.
Also, I do know the actual reason for why Spacestation lost this one. Carter was wearing a Spacestation shirt. Caster's curse literally right from the jump. That's the reason it happened.
I mean,
biased broadcasters.
That is crazy.
Why would he do that to his favorite player, Ashen? Why would he do that? Come on, Carter.
I couldn't tell you. Carter is a diehard SSG fan. I think I've only seen
the problem.
him wear.
He was even wearing the shirt.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think I've only seen him support SSG merch. Nobody else.
He's got the sticker on his laptop.
He shaved his head.
He shaved for that challenge. Yeah, I remember Atlanta. That was
I think he's low-key SSG. Part of it.
Maybe he's got to get on the M80 train, though, because obviously they come away with a huge dub here. And I really liked the answer that Kino gave in that interview, talking about how he has had problems and how, like, he improved after getting benched. I think it takes a real, like, fundamentally mentally strong player to go through a process like that and to be able to reflect on yourself and improve and come out actually looking better too, right? I think it's maybe easier for a player to look at themselves and be like, man, I played poorly, but then to actually go through and make those improvements. Like, I'm super impressed with that.
100%. Like, as a player, you are going to be your biggest critic. Even if someone else can give you that feedback, you have to identify that.
Well,
Crazy.
speaking of players who have had some time to reflect, the guys on Wildcard have not played a game in over a week, and today they have 2 games to play. Their first one against Los is the first one coming up after the break.